his channel as well.
Right, let's just go live.
Your camera's a lot much better, Kirk. I know you've upgraded.
Yeah, thanks, man. It does look there's a lot more clarity now. It's sharper, isn't it?
Okay, we are now live on the weekly live chat. I feel like crap today. Sorry, guys. So if I'm not all that on it, I'm never on it, so it doesn't really matter. But if I'm even less on it than normal, then there's a reason why I'm that way. We've got our usual things to chat about this particular week. So any updates and stuff we've got. Not a huge amount of updates from the A.D.K Rock and Metal channel. We've got work still going on with the A.D.K radio stuff. We've actually got the A.D.K radio licensing stuff that we need sorted. So now it's just a case of content creation, which we're starting. I've already started from my side of it. Kirk, we're going to catch up over the weekend and do some more on that.
Yeah.
So we'll start getting the content ready so that we will then, once we've got the content ready, we'll be able to launch the radio station. And of course, the other thing is the live shows. We've got the next week on the 7th, we've got Cerebral Scar, Raise the Devil, Broken States, and Axe of Vengeance at the 6-6 bar. So hopefully going to have a lot of people coming out to that one, which would be great.
They're all ready, Dave, as well, aren't they?
Sorry?
I just, before we came on, I saw Cerebral Scars sort of a little promo video. They're all ready.
They are all ready. Broken States are all ready.
Yeah.
I've seen lots of great push from these guys. So I really hope people will be coming out. We've got lots of people saying on the event page that they are interested or going. It'd be great if you go in to actually then buy the ticket in advance and not just wait to get it on the door, because it is a good discount if you buy in advance, is all we'd say. But obviously, as long as you still come, we do appreciate. And then obviously, we are now in the process of booking up the 2025 dates. We've got all 12 dates. And all we're asking is people, and I've actually messaged all the bands in our local scene directly and asked them to make sure that they go onto the adkrockmetal.com website. And if you go to live shows, there is a contact page and it has all the dates that we have this year for 2025. And I just need you, when you fill it in, put your details in there and tick the dates that you are available. The reason I'm doing this rather than asking bands just to message me saying we're looking for gigs is I then have to go back and go, well, can you do this date? And they come back and go, oh, I can't do that date. Well, can you do this date? Oh, well, hang on. And then it takes me forever to try and organize all the lineups. So if everyone could just send me the things and say, I can do these 5 days, I can put the lineups together knowing that they've already told me you can do it. And it shouldn't be as much of an issue to get the full lineups. We have already filled at least 3 of the dates are now full already for next year. We've got some touring bands coming through on one of the nights in May. I think the May date's gone to some touring bands that we're being the promoter for that. And we've got the Halloween show on the 30th of October next year. That's already now full pretty much. I've just got to find one more band for that. And we've got we're almost there on the April date, and the February date is almost full. So we're getting there. They're the ones that I've already confirmed. I'm working on the rest. So that's about all I've got. So let's move over to news. I only have one topic and it's on international, so I'm going to throw it over to Andy. What have you got? We're going to put grassroots news and international news, etc., all in the same one. So anything we need to talk about today, Andy?
Nothing we need to talk about, but just a few sort of items that sort of interested me over the last week or so. We spoke at length last week about the passing of Paul Di'Anno, the original Iron Maiden vocalist. The band, shortly after his death on Monday, released as an official statement, as did many other bands and artists paying tribute. But I did see that the sort of day after Paul's passing, Maiden played a show in Minneapolis, and I don't know where it was in the set. I don't even know the song. It's off of Zenjitsu. You know, right. He said the Time Machine. I thought, what the bloody hell's that? Is Bruce on the solo tour? But no. So before that song started, you know, Bruce, on behalf of the band, sort of paid tribute to Paul Di'Anno once again, saying that he was instrumental and groundbreaking in the formation in the early years of Maiden, and he had an amazing voice. And he said, "Thanks, boss, for doing what you did," and sort of finish off by saying, "Minneapolis for Paul Di'Anno, scream for me," as he often does, and has done for many, many years. So I was, it's nice to read that. Do you want me to go on to the second one?
No, just on that one. I always find it interesting before we move on to the second one, I always find it interesting when you get these people have passed, historic members of a band have passed, and the band always do this announcement because, of course, you're always in that two mind of you can't not acknowledge the fact at a live show. You have to acknowledge it because if you didn't turn around at your gig and acknowledge the fact of the passing, people would be like, "Well, that's a bit fucking cold. You've got to do it." But I think in this case, you can always believe that there was honesty in that because I don't really think there was a huge animosity by the end of between like the guys in Iron Maiden and Paul Di'Anno and everything that's happened. And I think that obviously his contribution was there, but there have been bands where a thought like an old member has passed away, and you feel they say these things live, and you kind of go, you don't actually mean it because right up to the person's death, you were calling them an arsehole, and now you're sort of giving them their contribution, and you're like, I think in this one, I don't think you could say that Bruce doesn't mean what you're saying, but I just find it interesting that sometimes bands do it. And in those cases, I'd rather the band just didn't do any acknowledgement if you know that if there's a history that you know about. But anyway, sorry. Yeah, carry on. What other stories you got? Anything else?
Yeah, just I mean, I'm not going, but there's a festival called Damnation in Manchester. Yeah, the BEC Arena in Manchester, an annual event. I have been in the past, 2014, when it was held at Leeds University. Very, very strange because it was a university building, an old building with wide wooden steps, and you sort of ascended from the ground floor. And you thought, oh, some bands playing in here. Yeah, let's go and check these out. Oh, merch rooms over here. Go up a flight of stairs, and the main room is up there. But they've actually moved on to bigger and better venue, which is somewhere in Manchester. But I was just going to talk about Cradle of Filth. We're making an appearance on one of the days. It's on the first weekend of the 1st and 2nd of November. And they're actually, like Maiden, on their tour next year. They're on this particular set, they're focusing on their first 5 albums. Now, for me, who's a fan of early Cradle of Filth, this absolutely is brilliant for me. You know, I'd like to see a live recording of this show because they're certainly the first 4 Cradle of Filth albums are very strong for me, and I enjoy listening to them and have done for years. You know, they range from 1994's Principle of Evil, Made Flesh to Damnation and a Day in 2003, but Dusk and Her, Embrace, Cruelty and the Beast, and Midian are absolutely brilliant albums as well. There's a few EPs and sort of other sort of albums in that sort of period as well. I don't think it'll take some tracks from that, like Born in the Burial Ground, which is another absolute banger, and from the Cradle to Enslaved is an EP, which had a video as well. So that period of this particular band is, in my opinion, their best. I mean, I randomly purchased one called Hammer of the Witches. I don't know when that came out, but that was fairly recent, I believe, but doesn't stand up to those particular albums. So
I'm curious.
Anyone going to Cradle of Filth, Damnation will be in for a treat, I think, because that's a great way of approaching the set, earlier material.
Because I'm not a fan of Cradle of Filth, so I know maybe, as I said, I probably have heard 1 or 2 songs of theirs in my entire life. So I couldn't tell you the difference between early stuff, but obviously we know of bands where people stop listening to them after a period of time where they've significantly changed style. Like we've talked about Paradise Lost, where that's been that massive swing. Sepultura did a massive swing in styles. So with Cradle of Filth, was that the case with them, that their styles massively changed? Because whenever I've heard discussions or I've seen a little bit of a live scene, it all just kind of sounds the same to me. But I know sometimes people's musical taste, where they've gone into other genres and stuff, means they just kind of move away from it, and then when they come back, it feels too different. They haven't been on that journey.
Yeah, I mean, unlike Paradise Lost, I don't think there's been a huge change in musical direction for Cradle of Filth. It's just, for me, the album I listened to today just didn't have any sort of memorable moments. I mean, there's some standout riffs, segments of Cradle of Filth songs that I'm eagerly anticipating to sort of come along in the song. Some real highlights and some really good moments. But on first listen to this sort of Hammer of the Witches album, nothing really rang out to me as being, that's a good track. That's one that's going to stand out if I listen to the album again. So, but it doesn't mean that I need to sort of give them more sort of airtime.
I can come in on that. So Cradle of Filth have definitely not sold out. They're just no longer seen as a black metal band, which they certainly were, weren't they, Andy? In the mid-90s, they were seen as Britain's only, international band that was Premier League, with the Norwegians. I reviewed their last album, the 2021 record. It's still very extreme. It's mainly the vocals, isn't it, Andy? That's never really gonna it's not really gonna appeal to 99% of the music listening population. So I think there's still, in terms of integrity, I know there are a lot more symphonic, there's a lot more keyboard arrangements, and maybe the guitars sometimes get lost in the mix, but they're still, I would consider them, state of the art extreme metal band. Yeah, they're just, I've heard the more later stuff, and you're right, it doesn't quite stand up, does it, to the earlier body of work. I definitely agree with you on that. But yeah, they're still a top class metal band.
I mean, is it a case that with this sort of band where you listen to albums of the early sort of stuff, and then you come back like 10 years later, and because the band has had so many numerous lineup changes, you don't see it as a band anymore. You just see it as a Danny Filth solo indulgent project. It's basically it's called Cradle of Filth, but it's Danny Filth with other people he brings in, and if you don't like it, it gets rid of you. Kind of like somehow we think about bands like Ghost as well. Kind of have that where you get members that do get changed. Because if you look at the lineup, I mean, when you look at the timeline of the amount of people that have been in this band, that's ridiculous. There's like over 35 people in there in this listing of people, and you're like, how the hell?
I'd imagine.
In 30 years, so it means every year you're changing a person every single year, effectively. If you've got a new line, that's not a band. That's a project where it's only Danny Filth is the only person from start to finish in it. And does that make a difference? Because I would find that if you're loyal to a band and you love that band and they keep bringing new people in, it does change your writing, it does change your style. Although you've got Danny Filth at the head of that, kind of dictating where he wants that to go. But does that have an impact, do you reckon?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I'm not sure, but I don't know if he's got any sort of input on the musical writing, whether he actually composes any of the music. I don't know. I know he's obviously the lyricist and the image creator, but guitarists come and go in this band, and that may be a factor as to the change of sort of style of that particular part of their music. But it can't be good for sort of cohesion and band morale and sort of creative juices to flow if people are coming and going as often as they are. But you're right, David. It does seem like it's he's the sort of sole founding member, the main man, as it were. So he's calling the shots and drafting these people in and booting them out as and when. Not a very familiar setup. There's probably not many bands. I'm sure there are that sort of have this revolving door of members that still continue to sort of, as Kirk said, still producing extreme metal, which is of high caliber. It's just personally for me, it just doesn't match the sort of 90s, early 2000s stuff.
Dave, do you know how you just mentioned the revolving door of musicians?
Yeah.
There is a subgenre where this is the known deathcore. I'll give you an example. That band Oceano, who put out an album this year, so they've been around since 2007. They've had 20 ex-members of the band go through it. Honestly, you just look into deathcore bands on Encyclopedia Metallum, if they're allowed to be listed, by the way, because they're quite snobbish on there and don't like deathcore. It's normal. You have like a band that's been around a decade. A lot of them will have had 15 members in and out of the band.
See, that's just not, that can't be good. That can't be good, having that many sort of switchovers and changes in a band. You're not a band, you're not a unit, you haven't built that connection as a group of people. You're just basically going, you're a guitarist, let's get you in the band and then we'll see what happens. And then crap, we don't get on with you and you're out and we'll bring someone else in, and egos come into it, and that's not a band at all. I thought the whole idea, every time you're in a band, and the idea that you want it is like 4 or 5 people get together and you write music that you're all connected to, you all come together and write, and you all believe in the same goal. If you have that many changes over, you have no belief in any goal. You wouldn't run a business where you change that many people over, would you? It's impossible to run a business where you have that much high turnover.
Yeah, it's a miracle that they continue some of these deathcore bands. I mean,
it is, actually.
Unfortunately, with them, you do find that musicians have had to step down due to allegations of sexual misconduct with groupies, or ex-partners accusing them of being, of coercive control. There are some notorious examples in that.
So, have you finished your stories, Andy?
Yes, that's all I had in the way of news this week.
Okay, well, that nicely leads us into the next topic of As I Lay Dying. So we're now down to the final. Well, officially it's Tim left, plus I think it's either the other guitarist, but he's waiting to make an official statement. So he may leave, no. But we've had the other three guys in As I Lay Dying have all left the band in pretty much daily succession. All saying that they cannot tolerate, or along the lines of they can't stay in the band with their like ethically or in their belief system. But no one's actually given a reason as to why they've all left, which is weird because they've got a new album coming out in November, which no one seems to know if the label's even going to put out now. Their last album's been pulled from the streaming platforms. There was a lot of allegations that it was basically assault where Tim had assaulted his wife, but his wife's come out and said there's no allegations there. And this was the one where we had, if I remember rightly, this was Tim, I can't remember his surname,
Tim
had
Lambe's
hired a hitman.
Yeah, he went down for he got a 6-year prison sentence, Andy, an undercover cop. So he tried to hire a hitman at his local gym on his wife. The person then went to the police and they sent an undercover cop. He did make an offer to the undercover cop, sentenced to 6 years, served 2.
Is this the guy who was accused of assaulting his wife?
Yes, no, accused of trying to have her murdered.
He tried to have her murdered, but now they're assuming that's why they're all leaving the band. But she said that it's got nothing to do with it, and he's never hit her or anything like that. So
he's trying to hire a hitman for her, though. Or was this a different man?
Oh, surely it's a different woman. I imagine he's not with that woman who he tried to kill.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Who knows?
Well, we can easily rectify that if we've got viewers who need to know the facts.
He's forgiven the hitman aspect, but denying.
Yeah, I don't think it's the fact.
I mean, it's such a weird one. If you're like the lead for this band, if you're like the lead singer, like this guy Tim, and 3 of your band members in successive days all quit on you, making statements that they can't, with a good consciousness, stay in the band, you've got to make an official statement at some point. You can't just like, no, nothing to see here. It's fine. What's he going to do? Just go, fuck it. I'm going to put the album out anyway and hire a load of new guys in.
Yeah, can I just clear this up? So when he was released from prison in 2016, he married again to Amanda Dubord in April 2017. They divorced in 2020, and he married another woman called Dana Chiara in 2022. So he's definitely not with the original wife, Megan Lambesis. He's moved on and remarried twice since then.
The thing is this is the problem you get where we've had this 2 weeks ago. We talked about this, about when you make a public statement or something gets announced within a band and about the type of content you need to put out. There is times when you can put too much information, like we had with the Hot 1-2. And it basically, but not enough to clarify. So more information you should, but not enough to actually clarify the situation. Or in the case of this one, where you put no announcement out, and now the rumors are going absolutely apeshit. And you've got to get that balancing act. And the fact they're with a label, surely this would work. The only other thing you could say is, I wonder if it's like a big old ruse. Like, this is the best way you could get anyone to be interested in a new As I Lay Dying album. Get your 3 band members to quit, wait for the new album to come out, and they go, surprise, we're all back.
Maybe.
You never know. You could see that. People have tried everything else to do social media marketing nowadays. More people are talking about As I Lay Dying than ever would if they hadn't done anything. Let's put it that way for the new album. No one will give a shit about the new album.
Do you not think they're one of those bands, like in 2007 when they did that album An Ocean Between Us? That was exciting. They were like the most extreme metalcore band on the planet, weren't they? And then they were also, after Killswitch, one of those that popularized that, that clean chorus that we all despise. You can really blame these as much as Killswitch for creating that and everyone imitating them. And also, they were probably the band that did bring At the Gates, their riff into metalcore. So they've been very influential, but how relevant are they now in 2024 anyway? I mean, let's be honest, how many taste makers, I know I sound like an elitist, even like metalcore these days?
To be honest, I mean, I listen to, whenever I get a band comes through, that you've got to do something really special within a metalcore, deathcore band for me to go, okay, you sound different to everyone else that's out there, because there are very, very few. You kind of listen to it and you go, okay, you're really good at the heavy stuff, but you sound like all the other bands that are really good at the heavy stuff. So there's no real originality there. Oh crap, you've done the clean chorus vocals there. Your guitarist has stepped forward and he's going to do some vocals.
Yeah.
Like, stop it!
That's what As I Lie Dying are famous for, aren't they?
And it's
We've
that's
done a few on
the
the
problem
channel
is that
recently, haven't we?
genre. I think that genre saturated, and that's where deathcore came in, because it was like, well, we can take it heavier and do some more with what was going on with metalcore. And now the problem is that even that's pretty much the only way you can go is go down the extreme route and go down the Lorna Shore, that area,
Like
but
yeah,
and go down to
Andy, sorry, you were going to say something then. We cut you off.
I was going to say the sort of cliched arrangements that Dave was describing. We've it's featured on some of the sort of more recent videos we've reviewed, hasn't it? From sort of modern band, sort of recent releases from local bands and established bands. It's almost we can see it coming, and we're often sort of slightly critical of that they're sort of using that sort of formulaic sort of arrangement and sort of strong song structure.
It's a problem. The problem is that we get feedback on the channel about, guys, you've got to stop over analyzing and just enjoy it. But the problem I have if I do it is like, I need to be excited about music again, and what you're not doing is you're not exciting me. I've heard it and I can listen to this. I've heard it for the last 20 years. I want you to show me that you've got your own ideas, and you're not basically just copying and pasting other people's riffs that you've learned. In a way, I'm sure they're not copying, but it's basically, you've learned this song, you've learned these techniques, and you're basically going, this works, and you've just gone, it's the ABC of songwriting for metalcore. And I'm like, yeah, of course it works, because guys have been doing it for the last 30 years almost.
Yeah.
Show me something else.
We need the excitement we had when Cold Steel dropped on the channel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not metalcore, but metallic hardcore. But that was an exciting moment, wasn't it? That's what we want to. That's what we want to experience with new music that comes our way, isn't it?
Well, it's like we're always looking for that. Like the first time you heard like bands like Ginger or Tesseract or something like that, you were like, okay, here's a band that's working outside of they're coloring outside of the lines. They're throwing some new extra tools in their toolbox without being so weird and so left field. That they're still within the boundaries, if you like, of the overall piece, but they're throwing some interesting new things in there, and they're going to spearhead the new genre. And at the moment, I'm not hearing anything that comes out that's spearheading a new genre for me. All I'm hearing is rehashes of the old genres, and I think that's why I'm also like getting back and hearing, like, when someone comes out with just like a core raunchy hard rock band, I'm like, do you know what? It's great to go back to hard rock, because no one's doing that as much anymore. It's not a saturated scene anymore. So when you get an official like hard rock band, because trying to put a hard rock bill together for the ADK present shows, really difficult. I was like, right, well, that's Planet Fatale. Right, where's the other hard rock bands in the scene then for the local areas? I'm like, okay, Buried on Sunday, got them, right? Who else we got? I was like, there isn't that many hard rock bands. I could put Scarlet Envy in there if I wanted to, but I'm like, you'll get the same ones. And then there's a few outliers, like you've got things like For the Hornets, Stranger, that you could kind of throw in a bit more of the extreme oddballs. And then you've got the Doom bands and so forth like that. But when you want to go, oh, well, should we throw some metalcore bands in? I can start ticking them all off, and deathcore bands. You're like, okay, got a whole load of bands I can pick from for that. So we need a few more hard rock, but sort of bands in the scene. But let's keep moving on to the news. Kirk, what you got?
Yeah, Grassroots. This leads on actually from As I Lay Dying, because they're influenced by them, and they actually do show imagination. So the band Earthbound, who we're all big fans of on this channel, and we're friends with many of those band members, finally we're getting a debut album from them called Kronos, and it's out on the 26th of November. I urge our viewers, go and listen to this band. They mix melodic death metal, black metal, and elements of metalcore, but the choruses are not those irksome, whiny, pop punk type choruses that spoils a lot of modern metalcore. There's really a lot of thought gone into their arrangement. So yeah, I'm excited that album's coming out, Kronos, on the 26th of November. So in terms of the international or more mainstream news, two stories I want to cover. The first one, Jane's Addiction. I've got to say, when I was 18, these were my favorite band in the world. You know, I was really into Nothing Shocking, that 1987 debut album, and Ritual Dealer Habitual, the 1990 album, which basically ushered in grunge and alternative rock. And all those bands, Andy, that replaced heavy metal on the front cover of Kerrang, you can blame Jane's Addiction for that. They influenced all that wave of bands. Now, you probably were. There was a really controversial incident on the 13th of September at a show in Boston where frontman Perry Farrell and guitar legend Dave Navarro, well, Perry Farrell body checks him, tries to punch him. This is just after the end of a legendary song by the band called Ocean Size. So Navarro's finished shredding his guitar. And then Perry Farrell goes over and does a final scream in his face and then body checks him, goes to punch him. The guitar tech comes on stage, has to split it up. And Perry Farrell, the vocalist, has to be wrestled off the stage. He won't let it go. So can you imagine how much you would cringe seeing that live? You know, it's one of those where the microphone drops and you get the feedback and everyone's just shocked. They're like, what the fuck are we witnessing? So that's what happened on the 13th of September, the aftermath. They cancelled the rest of the reunion tour. There were 12 dates planned in the United States. And this is the statement they issued the day after. Due to a continuing pattern of behavior and the mental health difficulties of our singer, Perry Farrell, we have come to the conclusion that we have no choice but to discontinue the current US tour. Our concern for his personal health and safety, as well as our own, has left us no alternative. We hope that we will find the help he needs. Now, what have we actually learned since then? At the time, the reason given for this violent outburst on stage by Perry Farrell, his wife said that he'd reached breaking point after experiencing sound issues and struggling with his voice at a gig in New York earlier on. So he's taken his frustrations out. And that seemed to be the end of it until Dave Navarro's guitar tech did a podcast on the 29th of September. And this is what really happened. So Perry Farrell actually did punch Dave Navarro again after the show backstage. Perry Farrell had not turned up for any rehearsals before their first gig at Las Vegas, and he quit on the eve of that first gig and had to be talked back into doing that and then continuing with the tour. So why was he acting like this? So he wanted female dancers and backing vocalists as part of the live show. And the other three said, all right, it's a democracy in this band. We just want the instruments that we play to be where the focus is. We don't need all this extra razzmatazz. So they kind of overruled him, you know, as a vote of 3-1.
Yeah.
Apparently he didn't communicate with the band after this. And on that first show, his wife, in front of Live Nation, the promoters can be heard screaming that they're a disgrace and they've not given him any respect, and that they'd filmed this video with these exotic dancers that they should have been projecting in the background. So it had all kicked off on the first night. And it looks like, though not really intoxicated with alcohol, it seems to be substance abuse, but also severe mental health decline. Go and watch it on YouTube. It'll make you cringe. It's quite scary to see a band break up on stage like that. They're definitely over. You never say never, do you? But how do you come back from this? So I guess what I want to open up to you two, what other on-stage breakups can you remember? Have you ever witnessed anything like this?
Kirk, I was just going to say, how far into the set did this incident happen?
Midway into the set, so I think they'd done like 6 or 7 songs, possibly 9 or 10 even.
But that was it for the night for thousands of fans who were there. Wow,
not good.
You talk about uncomfortable moments. We had one of our shows recently as well, but we won't dwell too much on that. But I can't think of any incidents like that I know of. Can you, Dave? That's extraordinary, really. Does he have an issue with this Dave, the guitarist, or was he just the nearest one that he lashed out at?
They've always had issues between the two of them.
They're like like Aerosmith, they say toxic twins, Joe Perry.
So one of the things I heard about this, it wasn't just that, it was the case that he also wanted in the back screens on the stage, he wanted like pieces of artwork displayed, and they were like, that's not what we're about as a band. This is a rock show. This isn't about, and because obviously his wife is a former Pussycat Dolls and a dancer, and that's why he wanted the dancers involved, and he wanted these flamboyant art pieces, like an art show, and they're like, this isn't what we do.
It has been in the past, by the way. Every tour has normally had that, to be fair.
I think maybe this is where there was a disagreement. It was really weird before the punch. When you watch it from some of the footage, the way he's acting with the crowd. I know I don't know the song, but he's doing this thing and he's just going, ugh,
Yeah.
ugh, and the crowd's like, what are you on? And then he goes up, and that's when he goes up to Dave Navarro and he's like, ugh,
And then that's when he does the shoulder barge. Yeah.
you're like, are you on crack or are you off your freaking nut, mate? Because there is something seriously not right in the guy's head at that point.
I mean, this is the guy he was the founder of that Lollapalooza festival, which
It was, yeah.
was the most iconic tour, wasn't it, of the 90s, certainly in alternative and rock music. And he was a serious junkie all the way into the mid to late 90s. And that's what broke the band up. But yeah, Navarro and him have had a tumultuous relationship. I mean, they've been in the same band for 40 years. I know they split in 1990 and then came back in 2003 after a brief reform in 1997 where Flea from the Red Hot Chili Peppers joined on bass. And I remember being excited when they reformed in 2003 because they were one of those bands that they've been, like we say, name a band that's so influential and doesn't have the album sales to go with it. These are the best examples, certainly in 90s rock. If anyone killed hair metal, probably wasn't Nirvana. It probably was Jane's Addiction. They just don't really get the credit for that.
When you ask about like bands having a fight on stage, I don't remember any other point where a band member. I've seen it like grassroots metal bands. They always appear on YouTube where someone's just got pissed off because someone's not playing their instrument correctly, and they just wallop them on stage. And you think, well, you're in a grassroots venue, you're playing to it in a local gig, and your egos have just got on top of you. You're drunk too much. But as far as big bands, there have been bands that have walked off stage, because of shit. As a group, they've walked off, or we know the original Creed back in 2006, that all fell apart because of Scott Stapp being so drunk he couldn't actually perform. So that was probably one, but the band tried to get through it and eventually had to quit. You had Chad Kroeger from Nickelback because he came out and people were just booing the shit out of Nickelback. He's like, well, you came in for a rock show, and they're like, boo, get off your shit. It's like, fuck you then. And they said, we're gone because they were just
actually
rubbish.
There are good examples. Think about it. Wes from Puddle of Mud. This is a regular occurrence with him, isn't it? How many videos have you seen where he's the other band members just looking at him thinking, what are you doing? He doesn't finish a set. There is that unfortunate video where he's covering About a Girl by Nirvana and he's so out of tune, and the other musicians in the room they're almost about to stop playing their instrument. Have you seen that video?
No, I haven't seen that one.
It'll make you cringe. So we know he's done it. I do actually know that Soundgarden, when they split in '97, they did something similar. Ben Shepherd, the bass player, threw his bass up in the air and walked off stage. And then I think it was Kim Tile, the guitar player. He looked at him and thought, well, if he's quit, I'm doing it. And then Chris Cornell and the drummer Matt Cameron tried to carry on, and then the next day that was it. It was over. So yeah, I mean that's the other one that I can think of. But this is, I've never seen anything like this. Can you imagine being in the audience and you see the singer having to be carried off by 4 people because he's still trying to attack the guitar player?
Has your dog joined us, Dave?
He has, yes. Hello. Hang on. There you go.
There's a shadow there. There's a black shape there in the black room.
Yeah, he's a dog over there somewhere. That's the problem with a black dog in a black room. Sounds like there might be something to talk about that. You're going off somewhere. He's watching telly now, apparently. The other one I could think of was Corey Feldman. Now, Corey Feldman has had numerous times on stage where it's almost like he gets so frustrated with the band, but then they're all session musicians, and he just kind of comes out and he's like, okay, let's start the song. No, you got to play it correctly. Can it? You got to come in when you're playing a festival, and you can't. You guys are so in rehearsed that no one knows what they're doing. But I haven't seen them actually lose their shit together. That's just quite funny.
Have you seen that? Have you seen that one Red Hot Chili Peppers in 1992 when they're playing Under the Bridge? David Letterman show, I think it is. John Frusciante's deliberately playing it in a different key. So Anthony Kiedis can't sing in key.
I have seen that, yes.
Okay, now that is extreme, isn't it? Because he quit, I think, a few weeks later. Can you imagine Andy on primetime television?
I'm making a list here. That sounds a good one as well.
Which one?
So I'm making a
Yeah, you
list.
should
Now.
watch
Yeah,
it.
that sounds a good one as well.
He's deliberately sabotaging a song on the most, on primetime television. Anthony Kiedis is trying to pretend that he's not affected by it. And obviously he looks like a twat because he looks like he can't sing, which ironically he really can't sing anyway these days. But God, that must be so stressful when you know that the guy behind you is deliberately fucking things up.
But wasn't he, John? I thought he was a little bit off anyway. Was he? Was that when he was on
Yeah, it was.
drugs at that point? That was
Yeah,
before
yeah.
he left the band again.
Yeah, no, it was that he left. First time he left was 92 or 93. And
Yeah.
then he came back for that Californication album. But those 4 years, my God, he was a raging junkie. Did some really interesting solo albums though at the time. And guess who he was friends with? Perry Farrell.
Perry Farrell, there you
One of
go.
Perry
Okay, you
Farrell's
said you had
friends.
another. What else did you have? Anything else for the news this week?
More of a discussion topic, just one more. So the guitar player, Ola England, some of you will know him as the guitar player in The Haunted. He used to be in 6 Feet Under. Most of you will know him as a YouTuber and influencer who's got 800,000 subscribers. I subscribe to his channel, great guitar player. And he has a show called Coffee with Ola, and he has like Devin Townsend and Misha from Periphery. He's had everyone on. Opeth were on the other week. Now, he's put out a video and he's realized that basically 99% of the music he does on his channel is original, 1% is covers. You're not going to monetize the covers. So he's highlighted a copyright claim from the Chinese distributor Tencent, which is a massive company. They recently issued a warning against a YouTube video he made in 2021. It relates to an allegedly infringed song on Spotify. And there, Ola England discovered that a Chinese user called YB had uploaded the guitarist's 2021 audio to streaming services and seemingly used it in an attempt to steal the advertising revenue on his original video. Ola England also discovered that many more portions of his original work, some of which have been pitch shifted and generated by AI or remixed, have also been published on the YB account. So he's put original music out. Somebody's taken it, changed it slightly, and now they're making claims against him to steal his ad revenue on YouTube. And that's before we even get to the Spotify issue. Fucked up.
Yeah, I'd love to say that that's news to me, but unfortunately, it's a fairly compact. The problem is if you create anything and you put it out on YouTube, that only covers it on that channel. It doesn't mean that you're covered on the rest of them. The problem is as soon as you put it onto the streaming, it then looks at YouTube to see if you're doing anything on there, and then it'll claim your YouTube music. But YouTube doesn't go the other way around. It doesn't go, oh, you've put it on YouTube and you've got its original music, and then if you put it on Spotify, go, it was on YouTube first. It goes the other way around only. We've seen that happen on numerous occasions. I've had content as well on the channels where it wasn't copyright claimed and it was fine, and then I'll get a copyright claim. And sometimes I'll be like, oh, it's fine. It's not. It might have been some cover of something, and I'm like, it's fine. And then I look into it and I'm like, this has got absolutely nothing to do. It might have the most basic chord progression, but they're claiming it, so you have to go through that as well. And the whole copyright infringement process is a nightmare. So you almost have to be on that daily, especially for someone like him, where he's going to have so much viewership. You've got to be all over it. But unfortunately, there is a market for loading up stuff from YouTube and putting it onto the streaming platforms, because if you don't do it, someone else will do it for you, and they'll be able to claim it, and you have to then fight your revenue to prove that it's not their right and it's yours.
Did you say this happened to one of our favorite bands, the Cambridge prog metal band Acadian?
Acadian. So what happened with Acadian is one of their albums, I think it was either a new album or something like that. They were going to put all their stuff up on Spotify, and then they found out it was already on Spotify, but someone else had loaded their music on there and had basically manipulated it or something like that. So then they couldn't actually put their music on because it was being classed as copyrighted. And so they had to fight to get their information. So they literally had to get this other people taken down, fight and prove that they had written this music and it was their music and not this other person's. Because that's the other problem. It's not down to the person who's put it up to prove they own it. It's the person who, when you try and claim it and say, well, hang on, no, it's my music. They're like, well, no, they've got on it first. So you need to prove it. They don't have to prove that they own it. You have to prove you own it, and you have to prove you wrote it. And you don't get to see, the thing is, when you go and dispute it, you don't get to see anything about the people that are actually put the content on. You don't get to see their name or anything. But you, when we do it on YouTube and you want to appeal or dispute something, you have to put your real name, your real address on it, everything. You have to put all your account details in there, which they get to see, the people that are on the other end, but you don't get to see anything about them. So it's very one-sided. So it's better to be in a position where they're the it's better to be in the position where you've put the stuff on first rather than having to fight your corner in advance. So that's why it's always good if you are doing original content on YouTube, get it put onto your Spotify's and stuff if you've got Spotify anyway, and then at least you're covered.
When's the Nomadic Rain one going on Spotify? I think you might have to bring it forward, Andy.
Funny you should say that. This very day, we got the master of our tracks this afternoon, and it sounds really good. We were all asked to sort of play it on different sort of platforms and mediums and sort of give some feedback about what we'd like to change. But yes, to me, it sounds really, really good. With a few little tweaks would be good. But yeah, as for time frame of release and that be next year still sometime.
How many tracks did you record?
Just the one.
Okay, yeah.
Just the one, just to get a bit of studio experience, and then so we've got something out there, and then in time, sometime next year, I'm sure we'll get in the studio and do a whole album of maybe 6 songs.
Wow, 2-hour album.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's doom metal, so that'll be a double album.
Yeah, it's going well, thank you. But yeah, that's the latest on that. Very, very nicely segued into that, Kirk. Thank you.
Yes, and talking about albums, so albums of this week. We're back to Slim Pickens again.
I'm glad it's just not me who's finding it hard to sort of pick them out of the list. I mean, I'm using various sort of sites, but there's a lot of duplication. But there's one site that's got maybe like 40 releases. I'm thinking, I don't know any of these bands.
And we were saying before we started the live stream, that could be a bit of a challenge that we need to work on, because there's none of the big name bands that we've heard of are putting anything new out. But we've got all these brand new bands that are putting albums out. And because we haven't heard of them, we're like, nah. But it's the amount of time it takes in advance before those albums come out. Who's got the time, apart from Kirk on his epic 17-hour walks, to sit there and listen to 12 new albums out that have come out? I don't have the time to do it. I just simply haven't got the time. And in all honesty, I probably don't have the inclination to do it. That's probably a bigger issue.
Yeah, I mean, I'd expect on these lists that, there's going to be no sort of major label releases, but you thought there'd be some sort of underground UK bands that I may have heard of that are releasing something new that I can put on my list to talk about. But there was, I've just got the 1-2 track EP to talk about.
Well, which one's that then?
It's a band called Foul Body Autopsy, who I'm sure you remember, Dave, were one of the
solo artists.
Yeah, one of the guest headliners at Metal to the Masses.
Yeah.
Must have been last year, 2023.
He's the one that I did the video for that I only had to use one of my 6 cameras on.
That's right.
It's just him on stage. I was like, okay, I'll just one camera, point, record, done.
Solo artist, gentleman called Tom Reynolds. He's been doing this project for about 14 years. Prolific in releases, 2 full-length albums, 8 singles. This is the 9th EP that he's released. I don't know if they've all been physical, but lots of material. It's as we said, it's a one-man band, so he does all the instrumentation, all the vocals. He does perform live, as we've just discussed, with obviously backing tracks. He does the guitars and vocals when he plays live. This is a 2-track EP called The Discovery of Witches, and it's obviously the 2 tracks are obviously discussing witchcraft in medieval England. The name's taken from a necrophagist song, and I mean, I enjoyed the live performance. I've checked out a few of the tracks. Sorry, a few of his releases, and it's sort of death metal with a sort of bit of melodic tinge in later years. But I'll check that out when it comes out on Friday. But honestly, that was all I could pick out of the list of releases this week.
Does that class as an EP, or if it's just 2 songs, is that an EP or a 12-inch B-side? I don't.
It depends on the length, I suppose. I think there's quite long compositions when we saw him play live. So if that's 15 minutes, I suppose that's an EP.
I'm sorry, it's really not.
It's a new
Come on.
release anyway. It's a new
I
release.
mean, if it's a Doom band and it was 3 songs, I'd be like, okay, fair enough.
It's an
But if
album.
it's yeah, but you kind of go at some point, you can't just say it's an EP. No wonder he's got so many EPs if he's there that short. What's he got? Like two actual full albums worth of material at this point. You
Yeah.
can't just put everything out and call it an EP. I'm sorry. It
I
just
agree.
2 songs is
If
not
it's
enough.
two
It's,
songs and it's like 8 minutes, that's not an E EP.
Perhaps he wrote 2 witchcraft related songs and then just threw them together and released them, as one.
rather than put it out as a single, you could put it out as an EP. As a
We'd probably have called it a double A side, wouldn't we?
yeah,
In the SoundScan era where people bought CDs.
it would have been a double A side. Yeah. Go on, Kurt. What you got for us?
First thing I'm going to say, Andy, there is an album out from a Manchester band. And you know the band Fetal Juice, Derek Carley, the vocalist. He's now in a black metal band called Burial. And the album's called Rejoice in Sin. And that comes out via a label called Apocalyptic Witchcraft. I think there's a bit of a like ghoulish rock and roll side to the black metal, so black and roll. So you said you're looking for an English band. You might want to go for that. So it's Burial and it's called Rejoice in Sin. And that comes out on Friday, the 1st of November. The 3 that I've chosen, there is a big name release. I'm surprised you missed it. That Swedish gothic death metal band, Tribulation.
Who?
You probably know the name. I mean, come on, this is probably like the most successful band to ever merge death metal with gothic rock. So I mean, I was a big I quite liked their 2021 album Where the Gloom Becomes Sound. And I gave it a 7 out of 10, Dave, because you always ask. It's album number 6. It's released by Century Media, so it is a big label release. And as I say, Swedish gothic death metal, and this new album is called Sub Rosa in Aeternum. So I'm looking forward to that. So that is the big event in the calendar, in the heavy metal calendar for albums coming out on Friday. The next one, Metal Blade, new signing, a Danish metallic hardcore death metal band called Lifesick. This is my second pick. And it's called Loved by None, Hated by All, which is a great hardcore title. It's album number 4 since they formed in 2015. It's the debut album for Metal Blade. They're very much like the Swedish death metal, but with hardcore breakdowns and rough hardcore vocals. So looking forward to that. And then the third one is an unknown one, but when I read out, you're going to be able to raise a glass, even if you don't have one, because it's going to mention some of my favorite artists as an influence. So this is a Greek dark alternative post-metal group called Spineless, and the album's called Dysphonia, and it's released on Submersion Records on Friday, the 1st of November. It's the project of a female musician called Krista Saltampasi, so she's based in Athens. And this is what it says on the Bandcamp page. You ready? Presenting a unique blend of influences ranging from Chelsea Wolfe to Godflesh, Over, and Mike Patton. It's a successor to the 2018 album Speaking of Chaos and Relative Peace. So that's my third pick. 2 more mentions. Andy might be interested in an album from a progressive doom metal band called Qualm. So that's an acronym. I don't know what it stands for. QAALM. The album's called Grave Impressions of an Unbroken Arc. And that's their sophomore album. They're a United States of America is where they're based. And then finally, there's an EP from a progressive post-metal band from Finland called Bezra. The EP is called Equilibrium, and that's the 3rd release of their career. Progressive post-metal is like that German band, The Ocean Collective, that kind of material. So I urge you, Andy, as a doom metal fan, start listening to post-metal. It's like art school doom metal with avant-garde leanings. Dave, what have you got?
I've just got the one album this week. It's a band called Skillet. The album's called Revolution. So Skillet have been around since 1996. They're a Christian rock band, so not my normal kind of thing, although it's always not necessarily because of Christian, but because sometimes I find it all becomes a little bit like worship music, praise music, and some of their early stuff is very like that. However, if you listen to some of the other stuff, it feels a little bit more like positive. It's almost like you get like these, you get those speakers that come out that do those positive mental reinforcements.
Yeah.
Each is about self
motivational speakers. Yeah.
Motivation. It's kind of like having a band that's doing motivational speaking. So I got into them around like 2009 with their album Awake. great album, great put on a great performance, but it's basically hard rock. If you try to not think about that they're trying to preach at you about how God is great and your life would be so much better if you have God in your life. But just listen to it for the fact they do great songs. I did a drum cover of their song called Monster, which I really enjoy. Such a fun song to play. And new album. It's the first one for the last one was in 2022, so they are still knocking out albums. This one's called Revolution. Just interested more than anything to see how this one's going to sound. Hoping it's going to be getting back to the sound of like the late 2009 2010 era, because some of the stuff that came out around 2016 on a couple of the not the last album, but the one before that, it was, I don't know, it felt like they'd lost their hard rock edge and they were going a little bit too sampley based and keyboards, and the preaching had become a little bit too much again. And I was like, okay, you just I don't really want to be preached at. Demon Hunt as a Christian metal band, they don't preach at you. Deceiver Down, Christian hard rock band, don't preach at you. This one is like, I wouldn't expect, if you imagine those like tele evangelistic people, this is the band they'd have in the background sometimes with some of the stuff they do. But this could be a good album if they can get back to their 2009 era Awake setting. So it's something I'm interested in, but it could be one of those ones that could be a one listen and go, yeah, no, you're still not where I want it to be anymore. But wait and see. Okay, that's it for this week. Thank you for those that did join in. If you're watching this on catch up, which many people end up doing, thank you for watching this on catch up, and try to be on time next time. We start at 7 o'clock every week. So next time, be there on time. That'd be nice. And you can join us in the chat. It'd be lovely. Thank you very much for watching. And yeah, we're going to go. Bye.
Bye.